For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask to address the House for 1 minute for the purpose of inquiring about next week's schedule.
Without objection, so ordered.
I thank the Speaker, and I yield to the gentleman from Maryland, the Majority Leader, for the purpose of announcing next week's schedule.
I thank the Republican Whip for yielding. Mr. Speaker, on Monday, the House will meet at 4 p.m. for pro forma session. On Tuesday, the House will meet at 12:30 p.m. for morning hour debate and 2 p.m. for legislative business. On Wednesday and Thursday, the House will meet at 10 a.m. for legislative business, and on Friday, the House will meet at 9 a.m. for legislative business. We'll consider several bills under suspension of the rules. The complete list of suspension bills will be announced by the close of business tomorrow, as is the custom. In addition, Mr. Speaker, we will consider H.R. 3548, the Unemployment Compensation Act of 2009, H.R. 324, the Santa Cruz Valley National Heritage Act, and a resolution which will make continuing appropriations for the fiscal year 2010 and for other purposes. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman, and as Mr. Speaker, as the gentleman's indicated, we're going to be considering several extensions of expiring law next week. I would like to ask, though, with the recent reports of the Senate Finance Committee marking up their health care bill, whether the gentleman could tell us if the House could expect that health care legislation would be moving through to the floor either this week, next, or sometime soon. And I yield.
Well, I hope sometime soon, but not next week. That's certainly the case. We'll be moving the health care bill as soon as it's ready to be moved. Obviously, as you know, as you say, the Senate put a bill on the table. It will be marking that up next week. But our committees are working on bringing 3 bills that have passed out of committees together, and as soon as they're ready to go, and I can't predict when that will be, we will bring the bill to the floor.
I thank the gentleman. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask...
But I'll reiterate, it's not going to be next week.
I thank the gentleman, and I'd like to ask a follow-up, Mr. Speaker, whether the gentleman believes that the House would be waiting for the Senate to act prior to a bill coming to the floor of this House, and I yield.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. No, the House will be, as I said, moving the bill to the floor when the House is ready to do so. We don't know what the Senate schedule will be, so that we're going to proceed on our own schedule. And then, obviously, at some point in time, the bills will have to be conferenced and reconciled.
I thank the gentleman. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to turn to the question next week surrounding the House's actions regarding issues confronting the Assembly of the United Nations in New York next week. Mr. Speaker, as the gentleman knows, he and I both traveled to Israel over the August recess. I know that the gentleman is as concerned as I am about the potential nuclear developments in Iran, and the fact, I believe, that both of us feel that Iran poses an existential threat not only to the United States but also to our democratic ally Israel. There was some reports today regarding some shifting of that notion, of the policy behind that notion from the administration. We had the Vice President today indicate that somehow, because Iran did not have the potential capacity to launch a missile to reach our shores, that somehow we could deal with the threat of Iran. We also have news that indicates a shift in our policy of missile defense in terms of our commitment to our allies in Europe as well as Israel. Again, I would say, Mr. Speaker, to the gentleman, he and I both have worked hard on the issue of trying to stop the development of nuclear weapons in Iran, as specifically aimed at our only democratic ally, Israel, in the region. And I have believed all along, and I've spoken to the gentleman about it, that we ought to be moving as quickly as possible on the Iran Refined Petroleum Sanctions Act. And I'd like to ask the gentleman, with all that having been said, would it not be appropriate at this point to bring that bill to the floor, to give the President some tools at his disposal while he meets with the leader of Iran in New York next week, and I yield.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. As the gentleman correctly pointed out, I believe that a nuclear-armed Iran is dangerous and unacceptable, not only to Israel, but to the region, which I think will be greatly destabilized, and we will start a nuclear arms race in the region. In addition, as the gentleman knows, there are 250,000 Americans right now, today, as we speak, within range of Iranian missiles. And so I believe that a nuclear-armed Iran, personally, I believe that it is, in fact, a danger to the region and to the international community and to the interest of the United States of America. It is the policy of the United States expressed by our President that a nuclear-armed Iran was not an acceptable situation to exist. The administration, as you know, is pursuing attempts to negotiate to an end that there is an abandonment which is verified of Iran's nuclear efforts. With respect to the bills, there are two bills, as the gentleman knows. Chairman Frank has a bill in his committee on an Iran Sanctions Enabling Act, and Chairman Berman has a bill in his committee on the Iran Refined Petroleum Sanction Act. I will tell the gentleman that I am meeting with Mr. Berman and Mr. Frank next week, early next week, to discuss the bringing of those bills and the order that we ought to bring them in to have maximum impact. And I expect to do that in the near future. When I say the near future, I mean within a matter of weeks. I can't say it's going to be next week. Well, I can't say it's not going to be next week, but whether it's the week after or the week after that. But my expectation is, in talking to both Mr. Frank and Mr. Berman, that we will be bringing those two sanction bills to the floor in the near future.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the gentleman. And my concern lies in the fact of the reports out of the administration today, and that perhaps new intelligence information is being relied upon to result in a swift turnaround in our policy vis-a-vis Iran, which is why I raise this question and seek from the gentleman his consistent position that has been up until now that we do face a threat in Iran in its current capacity. As the gentleman states, we have uniformed armed men and women in Incirlik, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, throughout the region that certainly are in the line of Shahab-3 missiles that could do serious harm to life and American interest. And that's, I think, out of that concern, I ask the gentleman, could we see an expedited push on this bill to demonstrate that this Congress, this House, is not yielding to this notion that somehow Iran is no longer a threat? And I yield.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Now, to this concept, I don't want anybody to be confused. I'm not sure exactly what the gentleman's, I heard him talk about. The administration position, as far as I know, has not changed with respect to the concept of which the gentleman speaks. A nuclear-armed Iran, I believe the administration, I believe this Congress, believes is an unacceptable undermining both of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, but also of the stability of a relatively unstable, a very unstable region of the world. So that I want to reiterate that I think that remains the position of the administration. It's certainly my position, and I believe it's the position of the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee and the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, and I think of this Congress.
Well, I thank the gentleman. I think I'm to take heart in that position because I do know that the administration today has downgraded its alarm, if you will, and downgraded the threat that Iran poses. And I yield. Gentleman.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. And I'm not sure exactly what he's referring to other than the perception of how quickly the Iranians may convert to nuclear capability, their present capacity. Whether there's a longer time than that, but I have not had direct communication with the administration on that issue. Don't want to speak for the administration, but I think what I have already said to this point does in fact reflect certainly all the communications I've had with the administration to date.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the gentleman for his time, and I yield back.
Man is an elementary